And I talk to that. Okay, you're editing all of this, right?
Yeah.
Cut. My name is Stephanie, and I guess to share part of my story, I've always, I was raised in a religious house. My family had different influences of religion and the way they, I guess I'm going to use interpreted God and Jesus. And I was raised in a Catholic household. My mother's Catholic, and I went through Catholic school. I did all my sacraments. My grandmother was Pentecostal. My aunt was Methodist. There was a lot of different Christian faiths and influences in my life. So I kind of always knew about faith, and I knew about believing in something, and I always had this idea of believing in something greater than myself. But it was always like this external thing, like this, God in heaven, which to an extent is true, but, just always a God in heaven, and someone that was always looking at everything I was doing, and if I did something wrong, I got punished. It's like very fear-based, So with that, anytime something bad would happen in my life, I kind of was like, well, I kind of deserved it, and I always found some justification for whatever it was. Not until I think I started to have issues with my mother, actually, who was like one of the biggest influences as far as religion, because I lived with her, did I seek something more, or that I realized that there was something more out, like it wasn't sitting well with me. Like I was raised to understand that God was like this benevolent God, but yet at the same time, don't do something wrong because he's going to come get you. So I don't know, that just didn't weigh well with me, because that was the relationship I kind of had with my parents, particularly my mother, because she raised me. I love her, and she did the best she could, but that was what I had. So I needed something more. I started to kind of internally, I would pray about a better answer and like different things, and for nothing else, what I had with me when I would go through whatever I was going through with my mother, it would be like, I'm gonna be fine. I know I'm gonna be fine. I know that God is good, and it wasn't, whatever I was going through I wasn't going through it for nothing. And that helped me. And then when I started to learn, actually is when I started to go to Ignite Church, first Ignite Revolution with the big parties. Shout out to Danny Velez, because he was the one that actually he brought me to Ignite Revolution. And when I saw this party and this thing with a whole bunch of kids and people, and just loving God and hearing a different approach, was like, wait a second, God is in me, Jesus is with me always, like God is good, and God is not the one that's punishing me, all these things. That started to change the way I looked at everything. So with that, when things started to go wrong, I started to look at it differently, like, okay, maybe I'm not going through this because you are punishing me, but maybe this is something that I need to share, or something that I'm going to go through to be able to bring someone through it. And years later, someone made, I don't know, maybe it was through Matrix, or maybe it was through someone preaching at Ignite, that they shared a phrase like, you went up this mountain to bring someone else up this mountain. So, that was, then it started to make sense to me. And that's when I started to seek even more and want more from God, and understanding a relationship with God and Jesus, and what I have, the power I have inside of me, which is not my own. So the more I learned, like, so the thing is, like, sometimes I have to understand it in the like what makes sense, like I have to not just the supernatural or not just the stuff that I can't see, like, which is faith in a sense. I needed to know how that worked, you know. And so, you know, it led me down the path of learning, not just through Matrix, about Jesus and the Bible and the stories in the Bible, and learning those things, but also learning, you know, how it connected with things that I was finding in other ways, like, you know, the power of intention, and what you think you believe. And then I was introduced to, through Matrix, the book Switch on Your Brain. That was like crazy for me, changed my life. Okay. And I don't know, it just made me more aware of who I am and the impact I have on people, and all through learning more about Jesus, and all through learning more about his influence on the world, you know, and his story, and how he too faced challenges and things that to others looking in might be like unfortunate, you know, like they might look like, oh man, that stinks. But he took it gracefully, and knowing that there was a bigger reason for it all. So that's kind of how I started to see things, and I hope I try to, even, you know, going forward, I try to kind of look at, you know, certain obstacles in the way that, you know, you're able to approach things in a different way, like, yeah, I got this, you know, like, I got the power of God in me, and for whatever this reason is, there's a greater reason behind it, and it helps you do better. It helps you want to do better. It helps you put the best foot forward. I think I also learned with learning more about God and the impact that it's had on, you know, learning more about God's life, you know, Jesus' life, and what it's helped me do is understand people more, and understand that everyone has a story, and you know, it made it easier for me to, not saying that I don't, I'm still working on it, but it made it easier for me not to judge someone from just that initial, you know, encounter. Sometimes it's like, whoa, that person might have something going on, and they don't have maybe they don't have the faith, or they don't have the knowledge to understand that they're not alone, and that they can get through it, and that they were chosen to go through those things for a greater purpose. So with that knowledge, I've been able to kind of either share it if I have the opportunity, you know, when someone's listening, or I have someone's ear, or I have a moment with them, you know, to either share that, you know, they're not alone, and whether it's I'm supporting them, their family supporting them, or knowing that God is with them always and Jesus is with them always, to be able to share that. And I think the more I share it, the more I then take it, because it's like, wait a second, years ago, like I don't think I would have been able to do that. I think I would have been like, well, you messed up. So this is what you get. You know, because that's what I was taught until you learn differently. So yeah, I think the biggest thing, I don't even know if I think I'm doing a full circle, but I think the biggest thing that I appreciate, I guess is the word, or I'm excited for, I mean, I guess a lot, is learning more about Jesus and God, and the power that I have inside of me, because it just makes you walk differently. It makes you walk taller, you know, it makes you speak up when, you know, before, I know for me, I get like this knot in my throat when, you know, forever I didn't understand that, like, why am I getting this knot in my throat? It was probably because, or I'm learning now that it was because I needed to speak, and I needed to share these things, where I was kind of afraid of being, you know, judged or not having the right words, where now it's like, speak, you know, speak. You have the power in you to speak and share your story and be a part of something greater, you know. So I don't know if that was what I was supposed to do, but that was my story, kind of. Should, you know.
And then how did you get into doing hair?
Oh, how did I get into doing hair? I got into doing hair because it was something I always did at home, you know. I have a big family. I come from a really big family, so there's a lot of hair. So we would do each other's hair, and then, you know, I was in high school and I saw the opportunity to get into a program that allowed me to graduate with my license. And I figured, you know what, I can do it. At first I thought, so easy, I can do hair, whatever. And I won't have to pay the money that people have to pay when you get out of high school to do it. And so I did it, and I graduated with my license. And I was fortunate enough to meet someone, my boss, who is a great friend of mine now, who changed the way I looked at the field. And actually, to full circle, to tie it in, it's funny because before I started working with her, I had this idea of the industry being very cutthroat and very much like everyone's out for themselves, and I'm better than you, let me grab your clients kind of thing. And I met her, and she's also a spiritual person, and she's also someone who is out there for the greater good. And so I was able to see that not only was I able to work with the owner, single owner operator, but I was able to understand, her love for it, which then, I can't say that, I love it the same way as she does, but what I found that I loved was helping people, and the influence you have on everybody that you touch when you have them in your chair. So that was contagious, and the way that people left was different from the way they came in, and that to me was like huge, and the power we have, that part of that was learning the power of our words, and learning that what we speak and how we speak to people, and the words that they probably don't even understand what we're doing, but just the power of our words, that again comes from the divine, like the power of our words, can influence someone's life, significantly. So that was something that kind of kept me going in the field as well. And it felt good. It felt good to make people feel good.
Because they come to you for something superficial.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then you could turn it around.
Yeah, and you realize that. You realize that too, because some people come to you and you're like, really? That's what you want me to do? You're gonna pay me for this? Okay, all right. But then it's way more than that. You start to learn that, you start to make connections with these people, and you realize that they have a story, and sometimes they come to you to feel good. And I started to see that in myself too, like, when I would go get my makeup done or something like that, I normally would do my own hair, but when I'd go get my makeup done, that's something I don't do that well. Maybe you see that. It was to make me, it started that path into making me feel better. So when you know that you have that influence, it's like, why speak anything other than good into their lives at that moment? You have the influence to change someone's life by just, being kind and showing your love, and just like, showing at that moment that I care for you. I care for you and what you're doing, And I don't think I would have been able to do that if I didn't have faith altogether, because I think I would have probably been angry with the world. If I didn't shift, absolutely, if I didn't shift my perspective on that way of God being this punishing God, like you did something wrong, so you deserve it. I think I probably would have looked at people like, you, you know what I mean? Like, and it changing that perspective has helped me to be able to be like, man, you're going through it, but I got you, at least for this half an hour, got you. You're going to feel good, at least now. Yeah. And, I'd like to say that 9 times out of 10, if not 10 times out of 10, they leave feeling better. Maybe not the best, but better than they did when they came in. And that, to me, was huge. And definitely kept me going. Keeps me going.